All right, so is understanding people somewhat difficult for you? Because if so, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene is a good book for that, right? And so the reason for that is it really helps you kind of understand the different motivations and what could be driving certain types of people, even when they themselves are unaware of them, right? So it's the laws of human nature, right? So to say. Um, it also, as per, I guess, the people who review it on the back and stuff, it helps offer brilliant tactics for success, self development, and self defense. I guess psychological self defense for the most part. I guess you could definitely get physical in some aspects of the book. But basically, what it is it goes over 18 different, what he calls the laws of human nature. And to give you guys examples, we're looking at things called like the law of aggression, fickleness, defensiveness, short-sightedness, self-sabotage, just to give a few examples, right? Those sorts of things. And so it is somewhat of a bigger book, just under 600 pages or so. It was published in 2018. But who exactly is Robert Greene? Right? And so basically, he's a New York Times best-selling author with like 7 different books, all about like strategy, power, and seduction, right? And so he has like the 48 Laws of Power, think the art of seduction, something like that. And then there's like 33 strategies for war, I think. I don't know, besides the first two, I'm not all too familiar with every single one of his books, obviously, but that's the type of stuff that he writes, right? So with each individual law, I like how he sets up his books, right? Is because he starts out actually explaining each concept, and this is like he does this in the 48 Laws of Power as well, where each law starts out with basically a narrative that describes a real historical example of what he's trying to describe, whatever phenomenon it is, right? Um, and after that, he gives you an interpretation looking at that historical example and specifically looking at how it applies to the law and kind of analyzing it, interpreting it. And then he has something called keys of human nature in this book, or like understanding and so on. Basically, now breaking apart the law into different sections and looking at more kind of minute detail of the little aspects that you can break this law into, whether that be like, for example, one of the laws was about narcissism, right? And so he actually goes into different types of narcissists and what to look for and that sort of thing. That's the type of thing to expect, right? And each one's kind of obviously applicable to however he formats each specific law, right? So again, one of the biggest things for me for this was the historical examples. Yes, you learn a little bit of history, but it's just people learn a lot better with narrative. And so by starting out with that, it's very helpful to kind of solidify the law itself, right? Because you more remember the example of it than just like trying to memorize some quote, right? Because it's actually the narrative that helps. So to take some quotes from this book directly, just to kind of continue on. So, the laws of human nature is designed to immerse you in all aspects of human behavior and illuminate its root causes, right? And that's kind of where he's going with all this, right? And with that being said, he has 7 reasons itself in the intro, right? Of basically what to expect, right? And so, basically, first, the laws will work to transform you into a calmer and more strategic observer of people, helping to free you from all the emotional drama that needlessly drains you, right? So he's given like 7 different examples, or I guess reasons why you should read the book. Second, the laws will make you a master interpreter of the cues that people continually emit, giving you a much greater ability to judge their character, right? Going into kind of a more self-defense aspect of what I said earlier about like what people say or what the critics kind of acclaim to the book, I guess. Third, the laws will empower you to take on and outthink the toxic types who inevitably cross your path and who tend to cause long-term emotional damage. Fourth, the laws will teach you the true levers for motivating and influencing people, making your path in life that much easier. And if that seems a little too manipulative for you initially, I suggest reading the 48 Laws of Power, and he goes a lot more in depth in that. I guess the morality of it in a way. But that's in and of itself a good book to read. Fifth, the laws will make you realize how deeply the forces of human nature operate within you, giving you the power to alter your own negative patterns, right? And so one thing that this book helped me with specifically was being a little bit more introspective, specifically with, as he calls, the law of irrationality. And so I'm more aware of when I'm being more irrational, right? In given situations. And so it kind of helps you act accordingly to where you can be more aware of your own decisions and your own actions as well. Try to be a little bit more objective and less emotional when you're doing things, especially like long-term decisions and such, right? So sixth, the laws will transform you into a more empathetic individual, creating deeper and more satisfying bonds with the people around you. And finally, the laws will alter how you see your own potential, making you aware of a higher ideal self within you that you will want to bring out, right? Those are kind of his 7 reasons for, in his own words, of why to read the book too. And that's within the intro, so it's the first 15 pages or so. With that, he also does a lot of quotes and stuff throughout the books too. And so like, for example, one of the quotes he uses is, "Man will only become better when you make him see what he is like." And that's by Anton Chekhov, right? There's a lot of quotes throughout the book. I think at the end of every chapter, there's specifically a quote for it, right? But yeah, and to speak of the quote directly, like you're not gonna really, if you're not aware of why you're doing certain things and that sort of, you can't do anything about it really. You're just you just act at the whim of your own emotions, which can change on a moment-to-moment basis, right? So it's helpful to be aware of these types of things, right? And so finally, a bit of a longer quote, and he actually ends the book kind of on this concept of being more. Let me see if I can get the actual phrasing for you guys. But basically, it has to deal with death, right? And he says, meditate on our own mortality, right? The law of death denial. He finishes the book off with a philosophy of life through death, and I'm not going to try to give all of it away, obviously, at least for that perspective, but it hit home for some reason, just because of certain things that have happened to me rather recently, and also just that kind of changed my perspective, right? And so just to kind of get into that specifically, we'll look at the quote finishing that chapter. "So let us rid death of its strangeness, come to know it, get used to it. Let us have nothing on our minds as often as death." Like a bit obsessive, but at every moment, let us picture it in our imagination in all its aspects. It is uncertain where death awaits us. Let us await it everywhere. Premeditation of death is premeditation of freedom. He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. Knowing how to die frees us from all subjection and constraint. And that's by, I guess, Michael D. Montaigne. I don't know French whatsoever. So sometimes it's difficult for me to pronounce. But anyways, especially that one sentence that I accentuated a bit in the quote. He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave, right? And so that's one thing that kind of hit home for me specifically with what I've been doing now, to where you're not exactly in the most, we'll say, beneficial positions. It puts things in perspective, and it's a lot easier to make bigger decisions, and you get out of your head quicker, right? When you really kind of understand how the world really works, I guess, or at least have a better understanding of it, is how I'll say it, right? And so you can make life-altering decisions to just kind of be closer to what you trying to figure out how to word it. Be more aligned, because I think that's a great way to say it, is alignment for some reason. It just makes sense to me. But you're much more content in terms of, you're much more content with your decisions when you decide based off that, right? I'm not sure. Probably didn't come out that great, but that's something I'm still trying to kind of articulate, and is more of a longer term kind of idea, I guess. But at least something I'm trying to figure out. And I'm not going to lie to say I don't know. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here for now. But I will put a card up in the corner for the book review of Ego is the Enemy, because that's another good one. And Robert Greene and Ryan Holiday are very similar. Pretty sure Ryan Holiday actually dropped out of college to apprentice with Robert Greene. Might not be accurate, but I think I remember seeing that somewhere. But that sort of thing. I also put up a card for other book reviews if you're interested in those. Just other stuff that I'm reading. And I highly appreciate questions and stuff in the comments, just because a lot of this stuff too is I'm still actively going, thinking about it and trying to understand it, and it's kind of just putting out what I'm reading / thinking about, and just trying to understand it better. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers at all. But anyways, I'm going to leave this one here, so I hope to see you guys on the next one.